I don't know if you're experiencing an acceleration in time like I am, but it definitely seems like the linear construct of time, things seem to be flying past. But I guess when you're sitting and observing and you're really excited, and guys, I'm really struggling to contain my excitement today. There is so many positive things going on at the moment. It's brilliant. Look, of course, there's going to be a glitch in the road. In fact, I think, guys, that the next couple of weeks is going to be a massive, massive roller coaster ride. So it's certainly going to be a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of revelations coming out at the moment. One of the biggest things, and I mentioned in my last video, was the US, the year end is the 30th September, and then they're given a grace period of 14 days, so the 14th of October, to come up with the money. Guys, the 14th of October has come and gone, and the US is still unable to, to settle their debts. Guys, I know I'm saying that with a laughy sound in my voice, but the reason is because I'm so excited. It's one of the crucial steps that has to happen. So the fact that the USA is now officially bankrupt, or should I rather rewind and say the US corporation. So I'm not talking about the US, the Republic of the USA. I'm talking about the US corporation. This is fantastic news, because basically what it means is that the USA corporation doesn't have fiat currency available, which means indirectly that the bankers, or the bank gangsters, the Illuminati, the deep state, the Khazarian Mafia, are basically, they're basically losing all access they have to money. And remember what they use money for? They use money to bribe people. They use money to carry out all sorts of nefarious activities. So by them running out of money like this, it basically means that most of the nefarious things that they get up to, all the devious, evil things that they traditionally were able to do, they not as equipped, should we say. They short of resources to facilitate all of those sort of ugly things. In fact, guys, the way I see it is, I think the deep state, I know the deep state is in a massive state of panic at the moment, guys. So that's the reason, guys, that I say that it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride at the moment. It's because we're dealing with cornered animals. You know what it's like when you're in the last quarter of a game and everything has to happen, guys. That's kind of where we're at. If we think about an analogy of a chess match, guys, they literally have no more pieces left on the board. It's literally game over for them. There's a couple of moves that they could possibly make, but none of them are going to be of any significance at all. I think, if you are a chess player, there's that time in the game that both you and your opponent know it's all over. They can still make a couple of frivolous moves, or they could just surrender. But these cornered animals, guys, this is it. It's go time for them. It's either they survive or they die. And we're kind of at that junction, guys, that everything is on track. All the stuff that appears to be bad, all the stuff that appears to be going wrong is actually not going wrong for us. It's going wrong for the cabal. So when we think about the bond market, for example, guys, the bond market is literally crashing at the moment. Despite the Bank of England stepping in and actually offering to buy up all the government bonds, the pound still took an absolute pounding. In fact, right now, the UK has just fired their finance minister, which isn't really going to change much. There's nothing that any finance minister could do at this point, because these are the dying throes of a defeated bank organization. So all central banks around the world are basically in crisis. JP Morgan, in fact, at the moment, they're one of the biggest banks out there. JP Morgan has warned of a major drop in the stock market. This is expected, guys. They have, as I said previously, I think I told you this in one of my previous videos, during the COVID period, they printed the equivalent of 30 years worth of money. So in other words, the amount of money, or the amount of currency that they traditionally would have put into circulation over a 30-year period, was forced into circulation in 1 year. Now, the objective behind that, guys, was to try and bankrupt people, to bankrupt the world, to cause such massive inflation. And that's always been the modus operandi. It's either cause a crisis like COVID, where you then expect or that there's going to be massive government spending required. Because remember, when the government spends a huge amount of money, that means that they've actually got to create a treasury note or treasury bond and send it across to the Federal Reserve in the USA's case. They then print this money, but immediately that they print money out of thin air, what they do is they start charging compound interest. So guys, you know, when they say the US, and it's the US corporation, not the US Republic, the US corporation has a $31 trillion deficit. Who do they owe that money to? Basically, guys, it's the most ridiculous, fraudulent system that's been set up. Because of a bankruptcy going all the way back to 1913, accepted that someone else, a private organization, gained the right to create coin. That's the correct terminology. But guys, what they've done since then is, since 1913, these bank monsters, bank gangsters, Illuminati, Khazarian Mafia, have basically created counterfeit money. All of the money that's in circulation at the moment, all the money that we refer to as fiat currency, if you have a look on the note, have a look at a US dollar note, for example. It says 100. Now, what is it? 100 what? 100 US dollars? And because it doesn't have the dollar sign on it, that basically means every single dollar, every single rand, every single currency around the world has been counterfeited for years. And that's the reason, guys, when Gesara actually comes into fruition publicly, because loads, as I've said to you in my previous videos, loads and loads of stuff is going on in the background that is showing me that Gesara is definitely rolling out. Remember, guys, we need a safety net. We've got to break all of the existing systems. So we've got to destroy the current bond market, which is nothing more than a Ponzi scheme. We've got to destroy the current share or stock exchanges. Again, just a Ponzi scheme. Guys, nobody ever owned anything but those elite families at the top. All they ever sold to anybody. People thought they owned shares. No, what they owned was a certificate of ownership. The real ownership always vested with the Illuminati, with the bank gangsters. Guys, even when it comes to your home, to your car, you never own your home, you never own your car. All you own is a certificate of ownership. For example, if you stop paying your property taxes, they can seize your property. Not where we're going, guys. After the Great Awakening, we have inalienable rights to our property, and as such, nobody can ever touch our property. So if you don't pay property taxes, however, property taxes are illegal, so we won't need to pay property taxes. But irrespective of who you owe debt to, the ownership of your property is always inalienable. And that is very important, guys. So we're going to see a crash in the stock market. We're going to see a massive crash in the bond market. The petrodollar is going to absolutely tank. So what is keeping this economy artificially, or this bubble artificially up, is the mainstream media is not telling the truth. The mainstream media hasn't even mentioned that the US has missed their payment. Guys, the last time that the US missed their payment was the 2008 Lehman crisis. And what happened after that 2008 Lehman crisis was the bank gangsters promised to bring in a black socialist president in the form of Barack Obama. And the white dragons in China then agreed to another 77 million tons of gold. And so the bank gangsters then took that gold and they turned it into $23 trillion. And they then have kept the country running since 2008. And guess when they ran out of money again? Think about it. When was the next crisis? Guys, they ran out of money in January 2020. What did they do to us in January 2020? Remember, COVID was designed for two purposes. One was because they could not afford to lose the presidential election in the US to Donald Trump again. His 4 years of presidencies, or his 4 years whilst he was an active president in the public eye, guys, he devastated the Illuminati. He devastated the cabal. He devastated the bank gangsters. So they, under every circumstance, had to win that election. So the reason for COVID was, guys, by having COVID and the so-called pandemic going on, they could force things like mail-in voting, etc. And it's a lot easier to cheat with mail-in voting. So the second reason, guys, that the guys obviously started COVID was they were bankrupt. And because the world was bankrupt again, guys, what do? You create a bigger crisis. So at the end of it, their whole idea behind that was they were hoping that enough people would die from the bioweapon, the jab, and enough people would be killed by remdesivir and be killed by the treatment protocols in hospital, etc., putting ventilators down patients' throats, etc. Those treatment protocols were nothing but murder. Guys, I want to keep this positive, so let me not go down that track. The great news, guys, is when the stock market goes, when the bond, and I'm saying when, not if, when the stock market goes, when the bond market goes, when the petrodollar and all fiat currencies absolutely tank, inflation goes through the roof, you got to know the white hats definitely have a safety net. Guys, that safety net is called the quantum financial system. So what the quantum financial system is it's going to pick up, and it's already for the last 4 years, the quantum financial system has been running in parallel with SWIFT. So what that basically means is at any time during the past 4 years, the quantum financial system could have stepped in and taken over from SWIFT. In fact, that is what Russia, what Putin and China are using in competition to SWIFT. Now that they're telling everybody we're completely independent of the US dollar, the system that they're using, guys, is the system that we're going to be using going forward. It is the quantum financial system. They're forcing, as I said, the US is now in, Congress is now talking about going back to the gold standard. All countries around the world, because of the leadership of Russia and China by asset backing their currencies, and then the BRICS countries stepping forward and saying, we are making, or we're creating a reserve currency in competition to the petrodollar, they have now forced the rest of the world to start looking at asset backing their currencies. Because if they don't, guys, they are going to be unable. Just like the US has now got to a point where they can't pay their debts. Well, guys, even though they might have loads of fiat currency, the rest of the world is saying to the US PLC, remember, there's two things. We're talking about the US Republic, we're talking about the US PLC. The US PLC is now unable to pay their debts, because the rest of the world saying, hey, we don't want air, we want gold. We want real meaningful assets. We've returned to a barter type economy, albeit a very sophisticated barter economy. In our barter economy, don't think you can just take pieces of paper with colored ink on it and pay us for our gold, our silver, our platinum, our tin, or whatever it is you want to buy, oil, gas. What we're saying, guys, is we're asset backing our currencies. So in future, best you pay us in gold. And that's why now the US is sitting down, most countries are sitting down, in fact all countries around the world are forced to asset back their currencies. Guys, when we're talking about the bond market is taking an absolute pounding. Japan hasn't traded their 10-year bonds for 3 days. Guys, this is unprecedented. Since these bonds basically became the benchmark in Japan, there has never ever been a day that they weren't traded. We've now gone for 3 days. That's telling us something. In the next thing that's important is the Bank of England is running out of money. They don't have money. So they have said from the 14th of October onwards, strange date to choose, right? The 14th of October. Remember, USA was given 14 days grace to pay their debts, and they were unable to. From the 14th of October onwards, the Bank of England will no longer be buying back government bonds. That is massive, guys. That means that they are unable to absorb the cost of those bonds any longer, and that should negatively, because now they're unable to artificially elevate, or to try to artificially elevate the value of the pound relative to other currencies. The other thing that's huge, guys, is there's a massive bond market turmoil going on in the UK at the moment. McDonald said that government bonds with a 0.5% coupons that mature in 2061 were trading at 97 cents to the dollar in December, 58 cents in August, and they've gone down to 24 cents in the recent weeks. Guys, remember, that's not good news for pension funds, because most pension funds in the UK and around the world, they have always gone into the safest investments, right? So investments that we traditionally in the past always believed would give a return, but not a great return, but a very safe return, guys. So this is one of the challenges, is most pension funds have invested into bonds because they are a very safe place for their money to be. Well, they were up until now. And guys, here's the great news. Remember, the white hats, the white dragons have put in a safety net. That safety net is called Gesara. It's called the quantum financial system. It's called the quantum prosperity system, where they have freed up enough funding. They've freed up, they've set aside the Saint Germain Fund, the Rodriguez Fund, the Spiritual Wonder Boy Fund. There are a massive number of funds being set up around the world as a safety net to pick up the pieces once all this is broken. But remember, as the system is breaking, that's why I said it's going to be a massive roller coaster ride over the next couple of weeks. As we break the system, as the bond market goes, as the petrodollar dives, as other fiat currencies around the world take an absolute pounding. Remember, guys, the ruble and the yuan are gold backed. So what are the other currencies going to decline against? They're going to be declining against the asset backed or the gold backed currencies. That is why they have to, if they want to remain in the world economy, if they want to be able to trade with other countries, the rest of the world, the countries that are not yet asset back in their currencies, are going to be forced to asset back their currencies. And like I said to you guys, the benefit of asset backed currencies is zero inflation, because you can't just print money when you want it. The other thing that it does, guys, is it also keeps your currency's value related to other currencies. Remember, you're all valued against gold. So we're all valued against an equivalency. So let's call that gold the thing everything's valued against. So there won't be massive fluctuations in valuations of currencies against each other. Inflation will come down to zero. What a beautiful world we're going into, guys. So these are the incredible positive signs that are showing me that everything is on track. Gesara is happening. The quantum financial system is happening. Like I said to you guys, since the 19th of September, I haven't been charged a weekly fee for money that gets sent to me from Ireland. So guys, what's going to be happening now? And it's something that's also, so there is going to be turmoil. Obviously, as the old systems, as the banking system now collapses, because remember, these guys have been using fractional reserve banking, where they've only maintained 10% of their liquidity, right? So let me explain that to you. So if someone deposits 100 Rand into a bank, the bank only keeps 10 Rand of that and lends out another 90. And then that 90 gets deposited in another bank. That bank only needs to keep 10% of that, and they lend out 810. And that keeps going until that money's doubled. So can you see that the banks at any time, at any one point, the banks have only got 10% liquidity. So if 11% of depositors go to the bank and ask for their money to be withdrawn, in other words, what they call a run on the bank, there is going to be a massive problem, guys. So that is why the white hats are kind of keeping this under wraps at the moment, because if they let the cat out the bag, that every single central bank is bankrupt, every single bank is bankrupt because of fractional reserve banking, they don't have enough assets to cover their liabilities, there will be a massive run on banks. So that's why I'm saying, guys, go draw some cash out the bank. Rather be that person who's got a little bit of cash. This is not going to last for a very long time. When I say this, there are going to be challenges. This roller coaster is going to go pretty low, pretty close to the bottom. We're going to get pretty close to the precipice, guys. But remember, if you've thought about things like you've drawn cash out the bank, you've got drinking water, you've got dry food available, you've got some way of generating, in other words, a gas stove or something that you can heat food on. If you've got all of that stuff taken care of, guys, this little glitch in the road, and it's going to be more than a glitch, it's going to be quite a severe challenge to people who aren't ready for it, especially those folk out there who don't even know what's about to happen. It's going to be extremely traumatic. And that's why I say, guys, it's going to be up to us. Those of us in the know, those of us who are aware of what's about to happen, and I know, guys, I know just how horrible these people have been to us. I know just how abusive they've been to all of us. But we're really going to have to step up very soon, guys. We are going to have to be the people that are going to have to explain everything. It's going to be, we've had years to get used to what was coming. We've had years to absorb it. These folk may only have hours. So please, guys, start thinking about what can you do? How can you support others? And if you do have resources, guys, please try and buy a little bit extra, because there are going to be a lot of folks out there who are literally going to be caught with their pants down. They aren't expecting this challenge. They aren't prepared for it. So we're going to need to step up. We're going to need to help these guys as much as possible, right? The next thing, guys, is there's so much positive stuff going. You know, when in the past, when I used to hear that OPEC Plus had refused to increase the production of oil and the price of fuel and the price was just going through the roof, I used to think, wow, how selfish are they? But wow, guys, do you know how important this news is? Previously, OPEC would do exactly as they were told to do by the bank gangsters, because they were terrified that the US military would come in and discipline them. OPEC, guys, the fact that OPEC is prepared to say, US is begging for more oil. Biden is begging for more oil because he's obviously trying to buy votes in the midterm elections. In fact, that was what he asked Saudi Arabia. He said, guys, please increase production just till after the elections, after the midterm elections. I'm going to continue using, because he's using all of the US's strategic oil supplies, you know, that's really kept for war, etc. By December, they estimate that the US will be out of reserve. So the guys in the US, guys, fortunately, there's a safety net. Like I said, the white hats, the white dragons, etc., have created a safety net. So although it's going to look terrible, guys, it's going to look incredibly ominous. It's going to look like the end of the world is coming. There's probably going to be a nuclear scare. Biden is probably going to saber rattle with the Ukraine, at least, well, not Ukraine, with Russia directly. And there's going to be rumblings. And then, guys, like I said to you, President Trump, who is the 19th president and the commander-in-chief of the US military, Biden is the president of a bankrupt corporation. He doesn't even have the nuclear football, guys. So nuclear war is off the table. It can't happen. So when you hear saber rattling of nuclear war, know that it's all part of the plan. It's all part of setting things up so that President Trump can come in, be the mediator, save the day. And imagine, guys, how many people that hate him, how many people who couldn't stand his tweets. He's already, I mean, when you see when he does these talks at these stadiums and things, it's unbelievable. I mean, people can't even get into the stadium. So he is hugely popular already. But once, guys, once this actually comes out and people go, wow, Donald Trump saved the world, it's going to bring a lot of people in. Like they say, 4 to 6% will never, ever come across. And that's very unfortunate. But in reality, guys, things are really looking amazing, right? Starlink has cut off the free service to the Ukraine. Those are all massive indicators, guys, that they now got to accelerate things. Remember, after that bomb was blown up on the Russian bridge, since then, guys, things have really been accelerating in Ukraine. And for the first time, they're actually fighting a war. They're no longer doing surgical strikes, but they're now taking the gloves off and they're saying, okay, guys, it's time to end this war. So I don't think the Ukraine conflict will go on for much longer. It's certainly, obviously, guys, it's an ugly situation. It's not something that any of us can support. When I say support, I mean war is ugly and there's only losers in war. But unfortunately, Ukraine was an absolutely crucial war that had to be fought. It was one of the massive strongholds of the cabal, where they were doing money laundering, child trafficking, all sorts of horrible criminal things. I'm not going to go down those streets. So there were some really, really bad things going on in Ukraine, guys. It was, like I said, it was a massive stronghold of the deep state and had to be dealt with. Another one that also has to happen, unfortunately, but I don't believe it'll be a very long battle, is Taiwan also needs to be sorted out. There's a couple of challenges there similar to Ukraine. Remember, again, like I said, the Chinese and Taiwanese challenge is interesting because, as in all countries, you've got white hats and evil cabal in both. So you've got that in China in the form of the CCP, is kind of the deep state, and then you've got the white dragons, which are the good guys. And then in Taiwan, you've got exactly the same situation. So it's a very, very fluid, challenging time. But at the end of the day, guys, you've got to remember that nuclear is off the table. There's absolutely no way nuclear can happen. For example, like I said, the nuclear football in the US is with President Trump, so Biden can't start anything. The CCP in China, I don't believe they're able to, and even if they do, they've got contingencies in place that within 2 seconds of any missile leaving a silo, it will be neutralized and destroyed. So there's no way a nuclear war can happen. The other thing that's going to happen, guys, these are the things post, right? So one of the evil things these monsters did was they switched us away from the 13-month calendar to this 12-month anomaly where you got 31 days and 28 days. So we're going to be returning to a 13-month year with equal 28 days. Guys, here's the other thing that you need to keep in the back of your mind. One of the reasons that the nuclear scare is going to happen is it's the way to activate all the militaries around the world. And I know, I need you to prepare yourself for this. The military is the only way. The only way that we can finally defeat these bank gangsters, because remember, they are entrenched in the judiciary. They're entrenched in high levels, all levels of government, all the way from senior federal government levels, all the way, guys, down to school boards, etc. So they're in the police. The only way to go forward, the only way for us to solve this challenge, guys, is the militaries in the world actually need to step up. But in the interim, you don't need to fear. The militaries are the good guys. These militaries that are going to step up are the good guys. And there's 120 days, so there is going to be a 120-day period where we're going to be having a kind of an interim government, and maybe even a marshal, a military government will be running things, where they'll be running military tribunals, where they'll be prosecuting people for sedition, all sorts of crimes against their countries like treason, etc. There'll be people prosecuted for crimes against humanity, for the whole COVID hoax that was imposed on us, all those deaths and all those challenges, etc., that arose. Businesses closed down, so there's certainly going to be tribunals for that. And then there's obviously going to be tribunals for crimes against children. There's all sorts of criminality has been committed by these people against our children. So there's going to be loads and loads of trials, etc. But that's going to happen during that period of martial law, where it'll be run by military tribunals, because, like I said to you, the judiciary is captured. And, you've just got to have a look at how cases with Ghislaine Maxwell, etc., who was guilty of horrific crimes, and she only got 20 years in jail. So, guys, the judiciary is captured. It's got to be done this way. The military is the only way. So when the nuclear scare comes, and I'm saying it when now, not if, when the nuclear scare does come, understand that it's not the end of the world. It's a very crucial step. One, to give Donald Trump the opportunity to step forward and be seen as the hero. And it's not for his ego, guys, but it's a crucial step to wake more people up, bring more people into the fold, because the more people we have on the side of good, the side of right, the less challenge, the less the likelihood is of a civil war, of other sorts of challenges arising. So nuclear war to bring Donald Trump in. And the second, guys, is to activate the militaries all around the world in a way that's not going to upset people. Because imagine if all militaries around the world declared martial law, it would be a very traumatic thing for people. So that's another reason. It's going to automatically, militaries will be activated in the case of a nuclear war. So people will go, oh, that's the way it works. And secondly, Donald Trump will step in, be the mediator, save the day. Loads of people will then say, wow, he's the good guy. Much lower risk of any sort of thing like civil wars, etc. And all of that, guys, when you combine it all together, we are going to very soon, and I'm not sure if there will be an emergency broadcast service. It was something that we've hoped for a long time. The way that I heard they were going to be running it was over a 10-day period. They were going to be broadcasting 3 8-hour videos a day, which would be filled with confessions and the trials, etc., that have already happened to these, or should I say, for the crimes that these monsters have committed against humanity. So, guys, something else that's very positive is, now this is unconfirmed again, so these last bits of news are unconfirmed. I've only got them from one source, but the FBI building, guys, looks like it's been cleared out by the military. I've seen all sorts of feedback coming in of explosions, etc., going on in the FBI building. And so I think the FBI has been taken over by the military, which is great news for our side. Guys, also remember that there are definitely going to be fuel and food shortages coming. So if you have any way of making sure at minimum that your own vehicle is full of fuel, if you have a generator or something like that as a backup system, make sure that you've got additional fuel. You're not going to be able to get fuel for, it's not going to be a prolonged period, guys, but plan for about 30 days. I doubt it'll be as long as that, but just make a contingency. You know, like I always say, rather have and not need than need and not have. So guys, my parting words on this sort of broadcast, if you want to call it that, this newscast is, I am ecstatic with everything that I'm seeing. I am really over the moon. How I've contained myself, I can't even say. There is so much positive stuff going. I haven't even covered 10% of all the great things that I've seen out in the market. That's just unbelievable. There are incredible things happening. And as these incredible things unfold, it means the bank gangsters are being more and more defeated. The bank gangsters have less access to resources to use. The bank gangsters are becoming more and more and more cornered. And we, guys, every single day, the light, the white hats, the white dragons, the good guys are getting more and more and more in control. And the panic, guys, all I'm seeing is massive panic. In fact, one of the traders from JP Morgan the other day went, guys, we have no clue what to do in the market anymore. Everything that's happening is unprecedented. Well, bottom line is what the white hats have done, the good guys have done, is they have created a perfect storm that these guys are basically defeating themselves. They've never been on the back foot. They've always had the upper hand, where if something went wrong, they could use murder, they could use honeypotting, they could use bribery, their judiciary, their control of the judiciary, the control of the bar, of legislation, etc. They could use all of their resources to manage situations. Guys, they've lost all of that control. And that, guys, is the greatest news ever. That is what's exciting me the most, is that the deep state, every single day, I see the bank gangsters, the deep state, the Khazarian Mafia in the greatest panic ever, and they have no more moves left. Or should I sort of say, very few moves left. We are so close, guys, so close to this all being over. And remember, when this is over, that's when the good stuff starts happening. That's when Jasara kicks in, that's when all fiat debt will be cancelled. That's when taxation goes down to just, say, 14% general sales tax. That's when the quantum financial system does away with banks. That's when we once again are recognized as sovereign beings with all of our sovereign rights intact. We have inalienable rights to property, to travel. That means we don't even need licenses to drive cars, etc. So the future for humanity is fantastic.